Hey guys, it's Leah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my December wrap up, but from worst to best. I'm very aware that this wrap up is coming extremely late, but I do think that in 2023 I did a wrap up for every single month, so I wanted to make sure that I was also going to do my December wrap up, so it's finally here. And as always, I'm going to go through the books from worst to best. So we're going to start with the worst book that I read all the way to the best book, and I tell you what, we had duality. There were some books that I absolutely despised, one of which was the worst book I've ever read in my entire life, and then some books that I absolutely adored and I still cannot stop thinking about, so I'm very excited to go through these. But yeah, in December I read 12 books, 2 of which I don't own physically, so I did get a bit through my physical TBR, which I was really happy with, and let's just get started. So the worst book that I read in December is probably going to come as no surprise if you watched any of my Bookmas content, because I've been ranting about it non-stop since finishing, and that is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. I honestly don't even want to talk about this book because I really despised it that much. It is the worst book I have ever read. Just everything that I've already said about it and so much more. I don't understand why it was published. No, that's mean. I found it extremely cringy, and I will say it is a Christmas romance, so going into Christmas romances I do expect a little bit of that cringiness, but this just took it to a whole other level. There are so many quotes in this that I was like, I don't understand how this was allowed to be published. And on top of that, it really just was not good. This was my first Tessa Bailey book. I also had Wreck the Halls on my December TBR, but I decided not to get to it. I don't know if I will get to it this year now, because I just did not like the way Tessa Bailey wrote. But other than this one, I have heard quite good things about her book, so please let me know if you've read more, if this is just like an exception, not the rule. But at the minute, I don't know if I'm going to read some more from her. This was just not for me at all. I despised it, would not recommend, please never read it. The next worst book that I read in December was actually a huge shame to me. It had been on my TBR for so long and I had heard such incredible things from people who I have quite similar reading taste to. It just did not do it for me, it did not work for me, and that was Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. This cover is gorgeous. Everything about this book I expected to adore, and honestly I cannot tell you a single thing that happened in it. I was so bored. All I kind of knew about this before going in is that a lot of people described it in that umbrella of unhinged women, feral women. It had a lot of commentary on motherhood, so I was very excited, and I honestly just didn't get that vibe at all. I did also listen to the audiobook for this, which I am fairly happy now reflecting back, because I think I probably would have DNF'd it had I picked it up physically. I would say I'm happy that I finally got to this, so that it's no longer sitting on my TBR, but at what cost? Like, I was so bored. It just really wasn't for me, and unfortunately I rated this one 2 stars. Another one that was 2 stars for me that I did expect to rate so much higher was A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This was the last book that I read in 2023, and you know when they say like end the year with a bang? I did not end the year with a bang. I ended it with flop. I just don't know. This was my first T. Kingfisher. I've always wanted to read their books. I didn't really know where to start because their backlist is quite extensive and I've always heard really good things. But I did decide to go with A House of Good Bones because it was the only one that I owned physically, and I don't know whether that was a good idea or not. Like, I do want to read some more from her still, but I'm a little bit more wary now having read this one and just not enjoying it. I will say the only kind of thing, the redeeming factor for me, was the gothic house, the estate. I really liked the atmosphere that T. Kingfisher made with the house, but when it came to the actual characters and the plot, I don't remember anything other than there were a ton of bugs in this. Like, honestly, read this only if you like bugs. I don't really know which one I will get to next. If you have read any T. Kingfisher, please let me know which one is your favourite one, which one you think I should definitely get onto next, because I do want to read a little bit more. In my brain, I'm just kind of accepting that right now this just was not the one for me, but the rest I will adore, so hopefully that is the case. But yeah, again, this one was 2 stars, unfortunately was not for me. We then have a Christmas book that I read in my Christmassy 24-hour readathon, and this one is The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hallett. I'm not going to go too in depth with my thoughts because I did really go in depth in that video, so definitely give that a watch if you want to know what I thought about these books. So The Christmas Appeal is a really quick, fun, Christmassy thriller following the same characters as The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which was a couple of years ago such a massive thriller release. I did really enjoy that one when it first came out, and I didn't really realise that The Christmas Appeal follows the same characters. It does, but it is such a short novella. Like, I don't think you need to read the appeal. You can just read the Christmas appeal if you want to. This is a thriller following them and their journey, kind of wanting to put on the play of Jack and the Beanstalk when one day one of the cast members is murdered and you just kind of need to figure out who did it. But this one was just so full of drama, like middle-aged mum drama vibes, and it was fun. I did listen to the audiobook. I absolutely flew through it because it was so short. Would I necessarily recommend it? No, but if you are looking for that like quick Christmassy thriller vibe, especially round Christmas, you might have to wait a whole other year. But it was fun. It was what it said on the tin. It was okay. I rated it 3 stars. Next we have another Christmassy book that I read in that video, and that is In Holidays by Christina Lauren. This is a Christmassy romance that had been on my radar for years, so I'm happy that I finally did get to it in 2023, and it was a really fun Groundhog Day romance. And honestly, I'd never read a Groundhog Day book before. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do think when it came to the Christmassy vibe, it did halter that slightly because we were more focused on the Groundhog Day as opposed to all of the Christmas. That was okay. The romance book was fun. I do think I was rooting for the protagonist and the love interest slightly. I wasn't like 100% obsessed with them as I would like to be in a romance book, but again, this was kind of what I was expecting with this book, so I really can't complain. It was definitely fun. I would recommend this if you're looking for a Christmassy romance next year or this year in like 360 days. It was another 3 star. We next have All the Lovers in the Night by Miku Kawakami. I have read quite a couple of books from this author now, and I do tend to absolutely adore them. I really like this book. This was another one that had been on my radar for so long, and I just decided to pick up the ebook for it, and it was such a joy, such a heartbreak to read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will say, reflecting back on it now, I don't remember too much about what actually happened, but I just love the way that Miku Kawakami writes about such mundane things in life and just daily activities. I think they write about it in such an eloquent and astounding and beautiful way. It really is the definition of romanticizing your life whilst equally like reveling in the longing and the fear and the terror. I really enjoyed this book. Originally I did rate it like 4 stars, but now I've kind of lowered it down to a 3.5. I would recommend this one, but I do think I would recommend Heaven above All the Lovers in the Night if you do want to read something from this author. Incredible too if you want to get into translated fiction. We then have the final Christmassy book that I read in December 2023, and that one was In Holidays. No, we've already done that one. This one was Love Like Farms by B.K. Borison. This one is probably my favourite Christmassy romance, Christmassy book in general that I have ever read. I would highly recommend this one. Love Like Farms is a best friends to lovers, and I've never been much of a friends to lovers romance girly. Sometimes I absolutely eat it up if it's done well, but other times it's just not really for me. But with this one, it's continuing to change my mind. I absolutely love this. We are set on a tree, like a Christmas tree farm, where essentially our protagonist has entered this competition where this influencer is going to come to her farm and promote it, and like it's going to up sales, and she really needs that. So in order to do that and live up to the Christmassy romance kind of Christmas tree rom-com vibe, I have no idea what that means, but hopefully you do. She asks her best friend to see if they want to have this like fake dating situation just to kind of win this competition for this influencer, and that is what they do. But obviously, as friends to lovers, fake dating often goes, feelings start developing, and what she doesn't know is that he has kind of been obsessed with her his entire life. Ate this up. It was another one that I listened to the audiobook for, and I think the audiobook for it was perfect. I literally was listening to it every opportunity that I got. And I do just think it was the perfect vibes for Christmas. This is definitely my favourite Christmas book I have ever read. I ended up rating it 4 stars. And continuing on with the 4-star reads, but in a very different light, we next have As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Koteau. This book was absolutely astounding. Another one that I filmed my entire experience reading in a Bookmas video in a reading vlog, so I'll link that up above if you haven't watched it yet. But As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow is such a moving, profound, heartbreaking read set in Syria during the revolution. We follow a protagonist who is a nurse. She is very much involved in helping the people of Syria and seeing the catastrophes and just the heartbreak that is happening to her people and just all the wrongdoings. She's living with her best friend, who is also now her sister-in-law, who is heavily pregnant at the beginning of this book, and they are just wanting to escape Syria because of the revolution, because of their lives. They're really battling having to leave. They obviously don't want to, it is their home, but they are trying to, and it is just very much a story about survival, about love and humanity and family. It is such a heavy read, but it is a young adult book. I'm so happy that this was written written with a young adult audience in mind, and alongside all of that, the writing style was astonishing. So beautiful. This brought tears to my eyes. The ending did rip my heart out, and I would definitely say check trigger warnings before going into this, but it's one that I cannot urge you to read enough. It was astounding. I rated it 4 stars. Next we have Wandering Souls by Cecile Pin. This was a book that I really wanted to get to in 2023, and I'm so happy that I did, albeit it was definitely at the end of the year. But this book was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2023, and I had just heard endless incredible things about it, and having read it now, I can absolutely attest to that. It was beautiful. In Wandering Souls, we are following 3 Vietnamese siblings as they become immigrants moving to the UK. It is another story about family and loss and immigration and what immigrants have to go through. One particular narrative too from one of their siblings was one of the best things I've ever read. The way that Cecile Pin wrote them was just incredible to me. I absolutely loved it. I felt so much for these characters, and again, like, it brought tears to my eyes. I absolutely cannot recommend this one enough. So good. One of the best pieces of adult fiction I have read in a really long time, and another one that I rated 4 stars. Then have another adult fiction read that I've been wanting to get to for so long. This author in general, to be honest, I have been wanting to read forever, so I'm really happy I've now read their debut, and that was The Bluest by Toni Morrison. I am so happy that I have now read a Toni Morrison, and I can understand why so many people praise her writing. She is probably one of the best writers I've ever read from, and that is having only read one book, and her debut at that. This was absolutely astonishing. Before I do say anything about this book, I do absolutely want to preface and say that this is probably one of the hardest, heaviest books I have ever read, and I did not know that before going into it. I do wish that I did. I would absolutely urge you, if you are thinking about picking up this book, or you just want to have it on your radar, or for whatever, please check the trigger warnings. It is such a heavy read, but at that, an incredibly imperative one, and one that I would wholeheartedly recommend. Her writing style was unique and dreamy and eloquent and so visual. I could picture every single thing in this book, and because of the subject matter too, at times that definitely was not joyful or enjoyable. I would not call this an enjoyable read, but it is one that left me so astounded, and one that left my jaw on the floor, and I just loved it so much. I loved the way Toni Morrison writes, so now I'm so excited to read more from her. And if you've watched some of my videos before, you might know that I have a list of authors who I want to read every single thing from in chronological order. Some of those being like Clarice Lispector, Virginia Woolf, Angela Carter, and just from reading The Bluest Eye, I've added Toni Morrison to that list. So I definitely will be reading more from her. I'm really excited to. I'm just so astounded by her writing style, absolutely captivated by it. So I'm very excited. And this one I also rated 4 stars. 4.5. We then have 2 books that I rated 5 stars in December, and honestly I am such a picky 5-star rater. I only rated now 10 books in 2023 5 stars, which is insane because I read 109 books, so how could only 10 of them be 5 stars? I'm very picky when it comes to my 5-star reads. It's the bane of my existence, but also it is what it is. But one of these books I originally rated 4.75 stars. Now I have absolutely upped it to a 5-star, and in this current moment I'm going to put it as the best book that I read in December, because right now as I am sitting here it surpasses the other one for me just slightly. But we're going to go with the second best book that I read in December was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I absolutely adored this book so much. It put me in such a massive book hangover when I finished it, to the point that I really couldn't read anything else other than the sequel. I was fighting for my life to get a proof a week before it was coming out, like that was ever gonna happen. And then a couple of days after finishing this, I went into the bookshop that I work at and it was there, so I got it. I still haven't read it, but this book left me screaming, crying, throwing up. The ending, it absolutely confirmed to me what I now love in fantasy, and has just made me fall in love with fantasy even more. This is definitely one of my favorite fantasy books now, and I cannot wait to read Ruthless Vows. I'm so excited, also terrified because of how this ended, but I loved it so much. It was one of the easiest 5 stars I have ever given, and coming from a girl who doesn't normally read a lot of fantasy, but in 2023 I really went on it with the fantasy, and I continued to do that for 2024. For a girl that never really reads fantasies and never rates books 5 stars, with this being one of the easiest books I've ever rated 5 stars, like, it was so good. Okay, so the final book and the best book that I read in December, it is The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This book. People were not lying with the hype surrounding this book. Originally going into it, I was not wary, but I had read The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston and I thought it was okay. I didn't really think it was anything groundbreaking, but I did somewhat enjoy it. Going into this, I really didn't know how to feel, but knowing that it was one of the best books, one of the best romances that everyone was hyping up last year, and it did not disappoint. I was absolutely obsessed with this book. I flew through it. When I say I was like screaming, crying, throwing up, I know I said that for Divine Rivals, a very different vibe as to why I was, but this one, them as individuals, them together, I was gagged by this book. If you don't know what the 7-Year Slip is about, oh my god, you are so lucky if you haven't read this yet. We are basically following our protagonist who moves into her auntie's apartment in New York after she sadly passes away. When she was younger, her auntie always told her about the apartment and how it had like these magical abilities and this kind of time loop situation, and she just never really believed it. She was a child until this man suddenly appears in the apartment claiming that he is subletting it from her auntie, but he is 7 years in the past. I originally really wasn't sure how the kind of like actual plot of this book was going to work with this sort of magical realism, with this time element. I thought I was going to be quite confused by it. No, Ashley Poston thought of it all. This was just absolutely genius. The yearning and the tension that the characters experienced with one another, especially when it came to the 7-year difference. How like that one night was last night for her, but 7 years ago for him. Gagged. It was so good. I highly recommend this. This is one of my favorite romance books of all time now. It was one of the best books that I read in 2023 and I completely get the hype. If you haven't read it yet, you are so incredibly lucky. Please do, like, it will not disappoint. So these were the 12 books that I read in December. I do feel like it was a really good reading month. Obviously we had a book that was the worst book I ever read and then two like of my favorite books of the year, so we had duality. So overall I do think it was a really successful month. If you have read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them, whether you agree with my thoughts or you disagree, or let me know if any of them are on your TBR. Hopefully I have convinced you to read some of the best ones because so many of these were astounding. But yeah, if you watched this far into the video and you would like to show you stayed until the very end but you don't really know what to comment any yellow emoji for the 7-Year Slip. As always, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave it a massive thumbs up. It really helps my channel out, but I also do really appreciate it. And if you did also enjoy this video but you are not yet subscribed, I would absolutely love if you considered doing so. I would love to have you here. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again very soon with another video.